All About Me by Lena. My name is John Tony. I have blue eyes and blonde hair. I was also a little overweight, but I didn't care. My childhood heroes were Lone Ranger and Superman. I lived and grew up in New Albany, Indiana. I have two sisters, and I thought they were bossy, but my parents didn't think they were really bossy, so I just went along with the crew. Also, my sisters found me irritating, but that didn't bother me either. Once I shared a room with one of my sisters, and she said it stunk. Also, I didn't want her spraying perfume all over my room. My parents loved dogs, so did I. My sisters hated the dogs. I also had parakeets. The parakeets my sisters loved. My parents and I didn't like the parakeets because they would nip at our ears, and most of them died because they flew into the mirror and the mirror fell to the ground. When I was little, my parents taught me how to be respectful to others so that they will be respectful to me. Also, when I was little, my parents liked the same heroes as me, Lone Ranger and Superman. Also, when I was little, I got really sick, and my dad made me a blanket-like tent, and it was dark in there, so my dad got in the tent with me. In the morning, I felt a lot better. I didn't know what I had, but my parents told me to drink lots of water all the time. My favorite toy is my bicycle because I could ride it anywhere, like the market or to school, or just to ride in parks. My sisters also loved riding bikes, but by themselves, because again, they found me irritating. So they didn't really want to be around me. My chores were mowing the lawn and taking out the garbage. I got $2.50 a week. When I was in high school, I won the honor roll. When I won the honor roll, I got in the newspaper, maybe because that was really hard, but I found out later in the year. When I was in kindergarten, I got married, but it was in a play. I got mentioned in the newspaper for doing that. Wow, maybe because it was very crazy and weird and funny. My friends in grade school and high school were John Perkins and Terry Schooler. We had so much fun together all the time. We would ride our bikes all the time in parks and to our school and back. Also, when I was in high school, I played football, basketball, and I was in the band. My worst injury was when I got hurt in the Navy. I had to get surgery on my knee, but I wasn't afraid because this happened to me once before. So now I start the most important event in my life. I was in the Navy. I loved being in the Navy, but it was really hard. I started being in the Navy around 1981 and continued through the 1990s. I worked for the electronics technician. The plane I worked on was called the A-7 plane. When I was in the Navy, I also had some very hard, far, and long places to travel. And when I say long, I mean the longest I was ever away from home. The hardest place I had to go was on the ship. I went to the Great Lakes for basic training. I went to Memphis, Tennessee for electronics school. The farthest place I had to travel was to Hong Kong, China. Wow, I never knew I had to travel that far. It was a pretty long trip, as you can tell, because it was to Hong Kong, China. I missed my home and my family members, but I had to be brave and travel that far. The longest I was ever away from home was 8 months away on the ship. My son was already born when I went out to sea. My family members were moving in with my mom and dad back in Indiana. If you want to know, my job was really hard. I worked 16 hours all day because the planes launched all day, every day. The ship I rode on was called the USS Ranger. I ended the Navy by getting hurt, but not shot. I had to get surgery in my knee. That's where I got hurt. It hurt a little bit when I got surgery, but I wasn't scared. I've gotten surgery before, but in a different spot, and that's my big world event, the end.